Hello, everyone. Welcome to Midweek Gaming. Not the most pleasant stream, I admit, because yeah, things at Bungie have gone from bad recently to worse, much worse. For those who haven't heard, and at this point I would be shocked if you haven't, we're probably the last people to cover this, including. I mean, I've even seen outlets that usually don't follow Destiny stuff in general already covering it. So I
But
imagine
it's
you've heard about it.
still pretty fresh wildfire stuff going on right now.
Man, this fire burns so hot you would have to be a blind man not to see it.
Yep.
But maybe that's just my own 2 cents. The point being that recently there has been a massive wave of layoffs at Bungie, and these waves have affected the community due to the fact of who's been laid off, how many people have been laid off, as well as the reception to these layoffs, and the kind of after effect of these layoffs. Just everything about them has just gutted Bungie as a studio. Yeah, honestly, I thought that after the passing of Lance Reddick, we would not be having many more bad news until at least after Lightfall, or Final Shape, my mistake. But yeah, here we are. So, hmm. Before I do anything about this, let me just say preference. I am, I am, I feel for those who lost their jobs. I've lost my job in the past on several occasions, so I definitely know what it's like to suddenly just be without work. Uh, I feel for them, I really do. Especially considering how this whole layoff business has been handled, which again we'll get into. It's just shitty all around. But yeah, let's kind of just go into who's been laid off first before we get into it. Now, obviously, I don't have a list of names specifically, but there is a list of departments that has been affected. Well, there is one particular big name, or two big names that have been laid off, but we'll get into them. But anyways, the list of individuals that have been laid off is quite extensive. And this has been reported by Destiny Outlet, who kind of keeps an eye on Destiny as a game, and they were able to kind of compile a list of individuals, or at the very least a list of not studios, but departments that have been hit by this. And this goes from everything from community to social, marketing, publishing, art, QA, support, legal, HR, and production. So yeah, it's quite extensive, honestly. I believe that it's also been reported that at least 8% of their workforce has been sacked as a result of this. So pretty extensive considering. And around 100 employees, accordingly, were affected as a result, including individuals such as, again, a very famous composer, that being the composer Michael Salvatori. Michael Salvatori is a name, if you follow the games industry, you may have heard of.
You
He has.
you may be familiar with some of the other work that he's done for Bungie.
Keep your nerd in check, please. I'm
But
trying to
he
make this
he's
solemn.
he, he's worked on a lot of different pieces for a lot of different soundtracks and music played for Bungie.
Yeah, his work goes all the way back to the Halo ODST days. So if you've heard the ODST soundtrack, he had a hand in that. Basically, all of the Destiny soundtrack, he has a hand in as well. And he has now been laid off as a result of this. Interestingly enough, his actual website is in the description below, as well as a whole list of other individuals, or a whole list of other articles and individuals talking about this. A lot of stuff from Paul Tassi, who's been covering this extensively. A massive article that came out from Bloomberg by Jason Schreier, who actually reveals quite a bit of new information about it. I would have the art. I linked the article down below. I would be reading off the article myself, and unfortunately, Bloomberg being Bloomberg, you have to have a subscription to read their articles. That being including Jason's. So unfortunately, I cannot read off that article for you. But it is linked in the description if you want to read it, or if you have a Bloomberg subscription.
If you're able to read it,
If,
then
yeah, if you're able to read it, then it's there. But we'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, he has been laid off from the studio, so the loss of Michael Salvatore from the studio is massive. Again, Salvatore had a hand in basically everything to do with Destiny's music. One of the major aspects of Destiny is a game that's been constantly praised. The music of Destiny, I think, has never not been exceptionally well. I mean, say what you will about the character development and the story writing, especially as recently with Lightfall. But I think everyone can agree that the music, regardless, including Lightfall, has always been spot on. So his departure from Bungie is an incredibly big thing. And a lot of people are concerned with Destiny's future as a result of all this, especially Salvatore. Another individual who also got laid off, whose name sadly I cannot remember off the top of my head, I'm so sorry as a result, who also did the Deepstone Crypt soundtrack, has also been laid off. And that has also been a massive blow to the studio. Again, another big name in the music game, and especially when it comes to Bungie at least, because they were the ones who did Deepstone Crypt, the Deepstone Crypt Lullaby, which was a very popular soundtrack in Destiny. I think still is, honestly, to this day. If you've ever played the Deepstone Crypt raid, you've heard it.
Yeah, a lot of people do still enjoy it.
I especially still enjoy it. I bought the soundtrack from Destiny, the record for said Destiny, actually, as a result of like the work of this individual as well as Marcus Salvatore. So it's again, it's painful to see both of them go. Then again, it's painful to see all these people get laid off. So that's kind of where we are as a result. Now you're probably thinking, okay, a lot of people get laid off. It's kind of the business of the games industry, right? Well, yes, but unfortunately it's been handled in the worst way possible. Moving on to the second part of this kind of several part event, if you will, is kind of how it was handled. Effectively, how it was handled, according to sources from the studio, again reported by Paul Tassi, effectively what happened is that when they got laid off, they were laid off in a way that it was very last minute. Basically, none of the management knew what was going on, as well as the fact that they were laid off in a way where their health insurance, dental, etc., basically only had 1 day left. Since they got laid off basically near the end of October, I think like October 29th or something like that. So it basically meant that their insurance has basically 1 day left. Now, let me rephrase by saying I have heard recently, though, I wasn't able to dig up confirmation, but I think Paul, in one of his many videos down below, I think when he talks about Salvatore, also mentions that now they're getting severance as well as 3 day extension to their insurance. So maybe the insurance bit is not as much of an issue anymore. But again, the fact that it was very last minute, again, it's not great. It was handled in the worst way possible, I think, because of all this. So everyone was just kind of left with their pants down going, what do we do now? And speaking of how it was handled, let's kind of move on to the CEO's reaction to this, because obviously with a layoff as large as this, the CEO is going to say something. And like many CEOs, he said probably the worst thing you could probably say. In his specific email that he wrote, again, thank you to one of the articles that I have here from, no, it's not Forbes that had it. It was, oh my goodness, WoW Vendor, thank you, who was able to capture the email. Wait, was it WoW Vendor? Oh, yep, no, it was WoW Vendor. Thank you to WoW Vendor for actually capturing the tweet from Pete Parsons, the CEO of Bungie. Because unfortunately, when I went to look on my Twitter for the email, I could not find it. So I think Pete may have deleted it. Rightfully so, considering the last I heard that email was being memed and just insulted into the ground. Rightfully so when you discover how it was worded, which again we'll get into. So anyways, Pete basically said, and I quote, "Today is a sad day at Bungie, as we say goodbye to colleagues who have all made a significant impact on our studio. What these exceptional individuals have contributed to our game and Bungie culture has been enormous, and will continue to be part of Bungie long into the future." He followed it up by saying, "They are truly talented people. If you have openings, I would highly recommend each and every one of them." Now, the second part may not sound so bad, but the first part kind of is.
Well,
A lot of people...
overall, that kind of screams, oh yeah, I've kind of, even though I am the one who went and basically, like, assisted in firing them because I'm literally the manager of everything, I'm going to try to act like it's okay that I fired them. Like,
Yeah, I think the best way of putting it is like I can't remember who said it. I think Rick Kakis kind of put it best when he covered it. He read the email and he basically said, but like he basically said he basically talks about it like it's an act of God that they all just suddenly got fired, and he was like, but my brother in Christ, you fired them.
yep.
Like it's hard to talk about this in broad strokes and just be like so dismissive, being like, oh, it was such a tragic day, we lost so many good souls. Meanwhile, you're the guy who kind of resulted in them being lost, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So as I said, it's the result of many people memeing it into the ground. I couldn't find it on his Twitter when I went to look just before the stream. For those who are wondering, we're recording this on the 2nd of November, so I can't find it as of today. Maybe it's still there and I just couldn't find it. Maybe, I don't know. I haven't been on Twitter for a very long time, so I generally don't frequent it. So maybe I just couldn't see it, but I wouldn't be surprised if, like I said, he possibly took it down, because it certainly garnered a lot of poor response. And I'm imagining some of those responses were probably from the employees as well. And rightfully so, I would say. But anyways. So yeah, that's kind of where we find ourselves at the moment. There is word on the wind that because of all this massive business, that their next big project, Bungie's that is, Marathon, has been delayed to 2025. Whereas Final Shape, the next big expansion for Bungie, has been delayed, or for Destiny, has been delayed till June back from February, which puts a 4-month wait in the season, if this is true. Again, I say if because while this is word on the wind and coming from sources, I think Destiny Bulletin, don't quote me, also reported on that being a possibility, or said that was possible. Bungie, for their part, however, again, to this moment, as far as I know, have not confirmed or denied that. The release date still shows as February, and Marathon still shows as slated for this year. I could definitely see Marathon being pushed back, though. That's definitely a very likely possibility. As for Lightfall, or as for Final Shape, I keep confusing those two. I don't know why. Maybe it's because that was supposed to be the Lightfall took up the slot that was supposed to be where the game supposedly where that ended. But I don't know. Anyways, like I said, it's both very likely and possible. Marathon I can believe being pushed back because it's probably still very much in early development, so all this shakeup probably affected development in some way. When it comes to Final Shape, though, I don't know. Also, I can believe it possible, but we'll have to see. Like I said, as of right now, Bungie has not confirmed or denied anything on that front, so we'll just have to wait and see how the cards fall, so to speak. But yeah, that's kind of where we are as of everything right now. Interesting news, though. Recently, Jason Schreier, and I say recently, like 2 days ago, I think, wrote an article actually revealing that big news actually came from his sources, and that apparently Bungie's profit estimates, were off by 45%. And you're probably wondering, why the heck am I bringing that up? Well, I bring it up because, well, it's possibly the very big catalyst to why all of this happened. Now, let me preference by saying these are profit estimates, not not profits in general, profit estimates.
Yeah, this is the estimations of what they expected and whatnot.
Yeah, what they hoped to make. Now, I'm preferencing that by saying, now I'm preferencing that because of one simple thing. There is a lot of rumor and a lot of speculation right now that there might have been a reason why these estimates were off as much as they were. Again, for those who don't know, I'm surprised if you haven't already, but for those who don't, Bungie was bought a few months back, or not a few months, several months back. I think like almost maybe a year. I don't know. By Sony. I think that's like 15 months back. And this deal was massive. I think the deal was somewhere in the range of several billion, but I could be wrong. But it was a massive amount of money. And I think it was almost like record-breaking in its result. Now, you're probably wondering, so what's that got to do with anything? Well, remember, these profit estimates would have probably come out around the time of Bungie being sold off, or in the talks with Sony about when they were sold off. Now, obviously, if you have a bit of business sense, you'd probably be putting the dots together here and thinking estimates of a company's growth and potential profit margins play a big factor in how much a company is willing to be bought for, or how much a company is willing to buy them for. Forgive me. So bigger numbers means bigger amounts sold, or bigger price tag on their selling price. So I wouldn't be surprised if Bungie, and again this is all rumor, may have inflated their numbers a bit to increase their sale price. Sony certainly has the cash to buy them for it, and considering the success of Bungie that came from Witch Queen, which was the expansion just before Lightfall, it certainly wouldn't have been a hard number to sell to the executives at Sony. That said, this is all just rumor, so I have no proof one way or the other as to if Sony did or if Bungie did this, but it certainly would explain why 45% off was their number missed. Because 45% missed projection number is a massive number to miss. Now, the exact number they told Sony, or the exact number they had as their projected number, I do not know. Possibly Jason in his article covers the exact number that they had as their projected price and what they actually had. But again, I don't have a Bloomberg subscription, so I can't tell you. It's in the article, though, if you want to see it, or possibly in the article if you want to go and read it if you can. But still, to miss 45% of your profit margin is a massive number, and not just something you miss on a Saturday morning because you miscalculated by a few zeros. My guess is that, like I said, they may have inflated their numbers a bit to increase the sales price. But again, this is just a rumor. And now that they have basically missed that target number, this is probably the result of massive cutbacks. It's possible that Sony reacted and possibly retracted some of their earlier payments or promised payments as a result. And as a result, Bungie's having to cut back a great deal in terms of actual employees to effectively save money. Now, the reason I say that is because there was, until recently, a lot of talk as to where exactly this came from, this decision. Like I said, Sony is owned, or Bungie is owned now by Sony. And so it was a lot of speculation as to where this decision to lay all these people off came from. Sony or Bungie. It was certainly upper management somewhere along the chain.
Somewhere there.
I say this because for a while, for those who don't know, but Sony has actually had a lot of layoffs around the board as well. Again, there's another article in the description talking about that, but basically what happened is that Sony has faced a lot of layoffs across their game studios per a source that is working on an unreleased game, states one of the articles that we have in the description. And again, this anonymous source basically states that Sony's facing a wave of layoffs in their studios. So people are wondering if 2 and 2 go together here, and if Sony is also impacting Bungie as a result of this desire to lay off individuals to save money. Granted, Sony or Bungie did state in an article and promised their employees that Sony would not impact their operations, and that Sony's purchasing of Bungie would not result in any layoffs or restructuring that you might expect with a typical changing of the guard that comes when a company is absorbed by another company. Bungie promised their employees that would not happen, and yet these layoffs came. So people immediately cried wolf and said, "You just lied." So everyone assumed that it was just the work of Sony just continuing to lay off more people, and Bungie was just next on the chopping block for them. So why am I pointing all this out? Well, I'm pointing all this out because according to Paul Tassi, in a tweet that actually he had, again, I could not find the tweet, so possibly he deleted it as well, but I had a video linked in the description by Rikakis, who points out the tweet himself and actually does show the tweet himself. According to Paul, he received a source from inside Bungie that stated that these actual layoffs did not come from Sony management, but actually from Bungie management. So why do I point that
Bungie's
out?
own team itself.
Yeah, Bungie's own higher-ups themselves, which is again why a lot of people are not exactly happy with the CEO at the moment, and possibly are now even more unhappy with him. Because you have to remember, right? Depending on where this kind of level of restructuring came from, or where the order of this kind of restructuring came from, will depend on how people will look at Bungie going forward. If Bungie is simply following the orders of Sony, then that's bad because they've lost a good amount of people. But it might be defendable because Bungie's just executing the orders being told on high from Sony. It's unfortunate, but 'tis corporate America. But if Bungie themselves were actually the ones who did this, then it looks very bad because it makes you wonder why. Why would they lay off all these people? Now, interestingly enough, speaking of Paul Tassi, he mentions in one of the videos we have linked in the description that he always felt like Bungie was hard pressed for cash. Like he always got that feeling from Bungie, considering how they've been increasingly monetizing things recently. And you have to remember, at the moment, all they have is Destiny as a game franchise. They don't have something like Ubisoft, who has Assassin's Creed. They've got Rayman Rabbids. They've got a bunch of other properties that they can pull from if they want to. I think they're working on Prince of Persia and trying to bring that franchise back recently now. So it's not like they have multiple franchises that they can easily dip into if one of them is doing less good or less well. Or not sure how to say that, but you get the point. Bungie only has Destiny. So if Destiny doesn't do well, Bungie doesn't do well. And you have to remember that recently they're trying to fund the development of an entirely new IP. That's costly, especially considering they have to run an entire MMO in Destiny alongside it, which is also quite costly. So, in a way, it makes sense why they're a bit more pressed for cash than they used to be. And after missing a 45% profit projection, well, I wouldn't be surprised if certain investors are no longer interested in funding them. I doubt this is possible, or I doubt this is true, because again, it's Sony. Maybe this doesn't change much, but I certainly imagine Sony's going to be a lot more hesitant in the future to basically offer them cash if this happened. And remember, I believe Bungie's a publicly traded company as well on the stock market. So I wouldn't be surprised if all this charade caused their stock price to drop. I haven't heard anything on that, but I wouldn't be surprised if that comes to be. It's just worth, noting in the future. All said and done, like I said, it doesn't look good for Bungie. And honestly, this is the first time I've actually heard any rumors or any serious talk in the Destiny space, so to speak, of this possibly killing the game. Like, don't get me wrong, I've been here since Destiny 1 beta. I have heard it all. I remember when The Division was called the Destiny Killer. I remember when when another game was called the Destiny Killer. I remember when the first jokes about Destiny having no plot being a thing, and if you were around from back then, you remember the meme of it's still better than Twilight. If you've been around, you know exactly where that comes from. And we've endured it all as a community. And while, yes, people have always joked about this possibly killing Destiny, I never sensed any real earnesty in the words. It was more of a tongue-in-cheek, maybe this will kill Destiny.
Yeah,
This
it
is the
was
first time...
unofficial, like, everyone's just kind of, for the most part, seemingly joking about it, but...
Yeah, this is the first time I've ever heard any actual concern in their words. This is the first time I've ever heard actually any serious discussion on this might kill the game. Because, like I said, Salvatore is gone. The music is now going to have to find someone else to direct it. And the individual who wrote Deepstone Crypt, Deepstone Crypt Lullaby, is now gone. Dang it, now I have to look up their name because it just feels wrong if I just keep addressing them as the Deepstone Crypt guy. Hold that thought.
All of our losses would have been for naught. We have never faced a threat of this magnitude. Even if you stayed, you wouldn't have stood a
Let me
chance
just
against the
figure it
witness.
out.
None of us would. This is our only hope to survive the witness.
Huh? Ah, yes, here we go. People who composed it were Sky Lewin, Michael Salvatore, as I said before, and Michael Shearist. I believe that's correct. So Michael Shearist is also no longer in the studio. So, like I said, two big names in Destiny's composing department are now gone, and this will certainly impact the game's music, I have no doubt. Like I said, say what you will about Lightfall's story, I think it's probably one of the best musics Bungie has as a soundtrack. Again, maybe not the best story, I don't think anyone will say anything about that, but I personally think it's one of the best musics up there with individuals like the soundtrack of Witch Queen and some of the soundtrack for Beyond Light, such as, again, the Aged Over of Lullaby. So, where does that leave us? Well, like I said, there is a lot of talk right now about will this kill the game? A lot of the community, the big names I've heard, for example, Astacross say, no, this will not kill the game, and he believes it won't. But the fact alone that we have to actually create those serious videos saying that, no, this will not kill the game, is by itself already concerning, if you ask me.
I'm relaying my position to you. Make you wait for the ship.
Paul Tassi, again, going back to him because he's done a lot of coverage on it, made an interesting point where he said that all of this has probably happened at arguably the worst spot for this to have happened at all. Because again, Bungie is having a down season between the flop of a launch that was Lightfall and now all of the other bangers that have been coming out in the games industry. Again, this is probably one of the best years for gaming in general, minus incidents like this. You know, we've had success after success after success. You know, Baldur's Gate 3 came out this year. Spider-Man 2 came out this year. A lot of games have come out this year that have just been success after success, and it is demanding a lot of people's attention. And Diablo 2 Season 2. Diablo 2 itself came out this year, which was already a good game. And from what I hear, Season 2 has actually caused the Diablo fan base to rebound. It seems Activision Blizzard is finally listening to their fan base. Well, all dogs have to get their bone eventually, they do say. But, you know, there's a lot of competition for people's attention in the gaming space right now. And Destiny's just kind of fallen by the wayside as a result. Like I said, add that to the dismal release that was Lightfall, and this is just a very bad time for Bungie to have all this happen, like the worst time possible for them. So, I don't know, where do we go from here, right?
Okay, here's the plan.
I hope this gets better.
Destroy
I
the
really
engine.
do. Because I don't like seeing the game company that I like a lot having
Kind
this
of
happen to them.
start falling apart on the seams here and there.
Yeah,
Things
I
not
don't
going
like,
well.
yeah, and I don't like a game that I have devoted a literal decade of my life, almost a decade of my life to, because like I said, I've been here since the beta days of D1, have this happen. This is not good. It is concerning to the nth degree. And individuals like Paul even said that he can't see this getting any better. This will only go downhill from here. Me, I like to be optimistic. I hope things will get better, but I certainly can't not see his point when he says it can only go downhill from here, probably. But we will see. So yeah, that's kind of where we stand right now with Bungie and Destiny and all of that news. Yeah, like I said, not the most happy show I've done. Like I said, this is probably the second most depressing show I've had to do, aside from reporting on the unfortunate passing of Lance Reddick. But here we are. So, what to do now? What do you think about all this, Justin?
I don't know. Like, as I went and said to Nick the other day, I kind of saw some of this coming because of how Lightfall performed in the initial release. That something likely wasn't gonna end well, and we're kind of getting to that part now where things aren't looking too great because they need to go and consolidate things in certain ways. So, yeah.
I can definitely see it. I have heard some people say that this is probably the kind of all the bad decisions they've made over the last several years just coming to roost at one moment.
Yeah.
So I can see it. But who knows? Let's hope things get better. I hope things get better. I like to be an optimist. That's just who I am. But I don't know. To kind of paraphrase some medical terminology, the prognosis does not look good. So, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But yeah, that kind of brings us to the end of this episode. Like I said, the second most depressing show I've had to report on since an unfortunate actor's passing. But, like we said, things will get better. Hopefully, they'll get better. I will certainly watch with eager intent. You know, honestly, I hoped to report on, like, you know, Warframe stuff, or maybe, like, come in laughing today and be like, hey, guys, Genshin Impact's, 4.2 stream, the release date for it finally got released. It's actually coming out tomorrow. I'd hope to. Maybe that'll be next week's stream. I don't know. Justin cringes as I mention my weed game. But,
Yes.
but you know what? I'd hope to do happier stuff today, but the chips just fell like they do, right? Anyways, hope you guys have a good week. Hope you guys have a good night. What like and comment, and comment down below. What do you think about Destiny's whole kind of debacle? You think things will get better? You think it'll only get worse? Do you think this was all just kind of the after effects of like many years of bad decision making? What do you guys think? I'm actually quite curious to hear what people think about this one. But yeah, no, that's it for us at Midweek Gaming. So from me and Justin over here at the Midweek office, which is effectively just my couch and his basement
Room.
dungeon.
Bro, I'm in my room. I'm literally in my office room. Out of the two of us, I have an office.
I have an office. It's called my living room and my couch, and
Yes.
I'm making do. I make do.
Yes.
Hey man, it's not like you don't have like. I keep my editor in the dungeon, the editor dungeon, the editorial dungeon.
Editorial dungeon. We work. We create.
We create.
We reproduce the same content for the 30th time in a row.
Insert the frickin' Prince of Egypt deliver us song here. But anyways, have a good one, guys. Bye bye now.